So in the interest of accountability, I thought we would start with where is Gap today? Obviously, you've got a lot of different brands, but you're a retail company, you're a tech company, you're a logistics company. How diverse is your workforce across these different brands? And how do you feel about the numbers?
I would say that we're not as diverse as we could be, because my goal and the company's goal is to really match our customer population and match the communities we do business in. We are very female. We're about 80% female as an organization, 75% female inside of our headquarters. Half or more of my leadership team, depending upon the moment, is female. I have, of my 5 brands, 3 of them are female presidents. So should I continue to go on here?
No,
but I am male, white, and 6 feet and over. So I was listening, but.
You've got, Banana Republic, Gap, Old Navy, Intermix, and what's the 5th?
Athleta.
Athleta.
Yep.
Last but not least, of course.
Athleta.
Can you give us any more specifics about where you want to see progress in your own organization?
Yeah, let me start at the top. So let's take a look at our board. Our board is not as representative of diversity as it should be. And if I could just offer a quick question, which is, to me, diversity starts first and foremost with the fact that I really believe, and we have evidence, you make better business decisions when you embrace diverse points of view sitting around the table. We're mostly male. We're working at it hard. Every other company is, but I would start first with our board.
Give us some of the evidence. Tell me an example where you found that a diverse team really did lead to a better result.
Okay, so let's start with Athleta, our mighty little business that's closing in on $1 billion and growing north of 20%. Athleta has an amazing brand. It's a brand culture, and it's not about female empowerment, but female inclusiveness. It's a diverse team. It is led by a woman leader. I'm quite confident that if it were with all due respect to me and everybody else in the room, a traditional male leadership team, we would not have the culture and the depth and resonance with that culture that we have. And it's driving the business right now.
So I'm going to state the obvious. As you just mentioned, you're a white man. Mm-hmm. Did you have to overcome your own hurdles to understand or even be willing to speak about these issues in front of an audience? And how did you do that?
So let me sort of answer the question that I wish you would ask. How's that?
I'm always willing to take feedback on my questions.
So one of the things that I'm not even a politician. One of the things that I really found is that it's super important to be willing, and I would call it, and I'm not sure it's vulnerability, but let's use that word for a second. To be willing to admit, especially as a CEO, because you're supposed to be omniscient and omnipotent, that there are things you don't know, and that maybe your cultural and social context doesn't reflect that of everybody in the organization. And so to be able to ask, whether it's sitting down and talking with a group of women, a group of diverse employees, am I thinking about this right? How does it look from where you sit, your cultural context, your social context? That's critical, because otherwise we've all got, as we said, we've all got our biases, our point of view, blinders on, and you're not going to see things that represent the group of people that you lead. So
you're in a unique position in that not only are you the CEO of your organization, but you are rubbing shoulders with other CEOs.
That is correct.
And I'm curious what they're telling you. I mean, do you see people rolling their eyes or groaning or, behind closed doors saying, oh, God, I hate this conversation?
Let me express a frustration. So one of the things that I'm super proud of about Gap Inc. is we're 100% pay equal. We are 100% pay equal, externally audited, equal pay for equal work. So I've got the benefit of the fact that I'm already there. It's really frustrating for me, and I can see the frustration when I sit down and talk with others, where they've said, well, we've done the work and we're 75% and we can get it to 82% by 2020. There's a little bit of me that says, isn't this just about writing a check? If you've identified the work, identified where you're not equal, and it does have economic consequences, so you're going to have to talk to your board, you're going to have to talk to your shareholders, but there's a harsh light of accountability and transparency that's shining on all of us, and you can't dodge it, you can't run away from it, and everybody's going to have to step up at the end of the day.
So how do you convince people who don't get it to step up?
Well, first and foremost, that's not my job.
Yep.
We share what we do. We funded the center at Haas on equality and diversity and leadership. They are doing excellent work there that I think is worth connecting to. We share our resources, we open the doors and everything else, but I got a big job here to do, and I need to answer to my board and my shareholders. So I have to admit, I'm not out there necessarily trying to convince my CEOs to do the good thing. At the end of the day, the market's going to determine if you do the good thing. The ultimate race is for talent. And Doris Fisher said this, our co-founder. She said, if you want to win in business, doesn't it make complete and absolute sense that you should have a place where everybody, regardless of their gender, their race, their sexual orientation, can contribute in a safe environment to the full extent of their abilities? It's kind of straightforward.
Talk to me about the pay review and how you did that, because a lot of companies are trying to figure out, well, how can we make pay equal? It seems like a really difficult thing to do, and actually, the longer an organization goes, the farther and farther apart people get, the more money it costs to equalize.
Yep.
How difficult was that process for you?
So we were talking about the fact that we were pay equal, and I kind of thought, you know, this is a pretty big issue. If we're talking about it and we're not actually pay equal, we better figure this out. So we went outside, because you kind of want to be right on this one, right? You do. We went outside, we brought a third party in. They came in and they audited jobs, pay levels, and all those kinds of things. I will be honest, remember we're 80% female. I was curious to see if we were pay unequal for men, actually. I was curious to see, and when it came back, and it was a simple audit, but it came back. So what I can't say is, here's how we got there, because I inherited this. What I can say is, what are we doing to make sure that we're reinforcing and protecting the culture that we're in? And that's lots of different things at the end of the day.
And does that require, you know, Salesforce has talked about, you know, it took 2 years to do it, but they actually have to do it every single year to make sure that they don't slide.
You do. You have to do it. You have to reinforce it. Where you get to is a function of a billion different decisions. Hiring decisions, pay decisions, promotion decisions, and all those kinds of things. So it's a culture, and it's a cultural context. We will audit this. We haven't done it since we did it, but we will audit this periodically to make sure that we're there. I'm less concerned, but I do believe that it's important to stay on top of this. And then, you know, it's tone at the top. We all talk about tone at the top. It's tone at the top every day. I'm fortunate to have 3 daughters, all of whom work professionally. It comes back to me very personally, which is it's a gift that I can make that next generation to do whatever I can to contribute to it. But if I, as a leader, am not focused on it, and my leadership is not focused on it, it ain't going to continue at the end of the day. It's just the organization, there's too many forces inside the organization.
You not only have to think about the composition of your team, but the composition of your customer base. You've got a diversity of brands, and I assume you want to reach all different kinds of customers in different demographics.
Correct.
You know, what are your goals there, and where do you think you're doing well, and where would you like to see doing better?
So if you're correct, we do want to reach everybody. So if you think about our business and you think about our customers are very diverse, from Old Navy, which is a value-oriented customer, Banana Republic, a more premium customer, Intermix, obviously, at the high end. But we want to connect with all of our different customers. And what that means is, in our business, what it means is, first and foremost, make sure you understand your customers. And it's actually very simple things like different ethnicities have different body types. So the fit camps are different, the fit blocks are different. Are you using a diverse range of representative models in your casting and those kinds of things? Are you in neighborhoods located where your stores provide access? And that's a big deal in inner cities, where inner city communities are often underserved by retail. We opened a store with the sponsorship of the city of Chicago, and we're an anchor store with an Old Navy, where we're now serving an inner city customer that did not have convenient access to retail. So it's not one thing. It's many things that are thoughtful and intentional.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was recently a New York Times report about Uber's new COO talking in a closed-door meeting about an ad that they were working on showing a mixed-race couple. And according to the New York Times, he questioned whether or not people really wanted to see a mixed-race couple and how often that really happens in real life. And people in the room found it to be a little tone-deaf, hence it ending up in the New York Times. I know you can't comment on this.
Should we have a vote here, you think? Or?
Well, you know, we're here in 2018. Why are people still saying these things?
You know,
I'm sure this is
okay,
something that you think about, right?
It is absolutely something. So, and I think about it in different ways, right? Because we're in an environment right now where CEOs have been whether they want to willingly go there, thrust into using their voices and using the voice of their brands and their companies to provide leadership on social and cultural issues that typically weren't the purview of CEOs in the political and the social environment that we're operating in right now. And it's unfortunate because we are in an opportunity-rich environment. So there's almost something every day. So we think about it all the time, which is where do we go with our voice? What do we put in? If you use your voice on every issue, or you avoid every controversy, I think you disappear into the background right now. I have very diverse customers across the political spectrum. I don't want to see a boycott of an Old Navy store. On the other hand, I need to stand up for issues where there's an issue about the values of this organization, which are about diversity and inclusion, and in issues where I frankly have employees that feel threatened. And I use my voice internally or externally from those standpoints. I think the conversation about a mixed race couple is frankly a conversation where you're talking to a door. I mean, it's just not a relevant conversation in this day and age, but I think there is a hypersensitivity to where am I taking a risk that might impact my business in some form right now? Because you could get tweeted about tomorrow.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Tweet. Hashtag Bloomberg Equality.
Perfect.
You know, we're seeing different affinity groups sprout up at various organizations, and everybody wants to be heard. And I think there's a lot of frustration for people who feel as if they haven't been heard for a very long time. How do you make sure that you're hearing all points of view? Has there ever been a moment where you had to sort of educate yourself to become more woke, if you will?
So I will say that when I watched what happened at Nike, and the fact that there was an effort below the surface to raise these issues up, I was quite concerned about that, because when you sit in my job, I mean, most organizations are wired to make sure that the CEO hears what the CEO wants to hear, or at least there's an instinct associated with that. So I'm very sensitive to the fact that am I hearing the things that I should be hearing versus the filtering that always goes on before it comes up. I was with my leadership team today, and we were talking about this exact topic. There's no one way. You got to be open to listening. You got to be willing to say, just because I'm listening doesn't mean I agree. You have to create forums where people can speak to you safely without fear of harassment or retribution. And we talked about this a lot right now. Are we doing enough? Are we connected enough to what's going on? Is there a smoking gun out there that I'm not aware of right now? And so to me, it's a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach to listen. And then you just have to walk around and ask questions all the time. I actually, in my case, I try to stay very connected to young entry-level employees. I try to talk to them in the first 6 months when their eyes are still fresh and they haven't gone completely native in the organization. And just tell me what you're seeing. Tell me what's right. Tell me what's wrong and that kind of thing. But you live every day with the concern that somebody's not being heard, or there's something out there that's important, or you got a blind spot.
Now, how do you make sure that employees feel empowered and heard and listened to, but also that it doesn't get out of hand? I mean, I think at Uber, for example, the head of HR recently resigned, and she came in only a year, maybe a year and a half ago, and inherited a lot of problems, but was then sort of accused of not responding fast enough. And whatever actually happened, there's a lot of pent-up frustration there, clearly. But there are concerns now about overreactions, and how do you find that balance?
I use a phrase: just because I listen doesn't mean I agree. I think actually the most important thing is to go close loop. If something comes up, listening is not enough. You need to close the loop on the listening. And if the closing the loop is simply, I got it, I hear you, we're not doing anything about that right now, and here's why. That to me, it works with my board, and it works inside the organization as well. I do think that these things can get out of control, though. It can, and there's a lot of, the wonderful thing about the world that we're living in is it's like we've taken the top off of a bottle that we shook up, and it's all coming out. We need to get to a sort of a steady state environment right now where people aren't operating in fear, but they're also not shutting back down again.
Do you think that we're in the middle of a movement, or is this just a moment? I mean, we just saw new diversity reports from Google and Facebook, for example, where the numbers have barely moved.
I think the ultimate driver of change is going to be the realities of the marketplace and competing for talent. I really do. I think that if The reality of business is that business, first and foremost, serves the capital in the business, the financial capital. Human capital is the second driver, or should be an equal driver. I think the ultimate driver of change is going to be that the ultimate scarcity is talent. And if you are limiting yourself in accessing the talent pool to a small subset of the talent pool at the end of the day, you're going to lose as an organization. And I know that probably sounds, I'm not sure what it sounds, whether it sounds mercenary or crass or whatever it is, but that is what organizations are going to ultimately respond to.
You are competing with Google and Facebook and
We
Apple
are.
and Salesforce for talent. What's the value
as a
proposition?
retailer. And you know, we compete quite effectively. What's the value proposition? Because we do here in San Francisco, we compete for a technical denim designer. There are not a lot of those going to Google, okay? But I'm also competing for product managers and engineers across the entire spectrum. What's the value proposition? First and foremost, I think the value proposition is that we make real things. They're people who relate to tangible, emotional products that you can touch and feel and put on your body. There's a connection in the world in the craft of what clothing is. So it's the products that we make and the brands that we have. It's an environment. Diversity for us is an advantage. Ain't the same if necessarily in all tech companies in terms of women. I have a woman CTO, a female CTO, and a female CIO, and I don't have them because we're trying to put up a poster for recruiting. I have them because they are the most capable people to be in their roles. That's part of the value proposition. Yeah. That is part of the value proposition.
Can I meet the technical denim designer? That sounds
Sure.
pretty cool. You said it, you're competing as a retailer, and it is no secret that the retail industry, especially the physical retail industry, has been struggling. How do you balance that priority with maintaining your values and building your diverse team?
That priority being?
That priority being staying in business, earning money,
Those
profits,
pesky details.
that.
Yeah.
Making sure people are buying the denim.
Yeah, so I mean, if what we're doing to be successful as a company, first, it's great brands, okay? Secondly, yes, we are a retailer, but what we really are is a fashion apparel company. People don't buy retail from us. They come in to buy a pair of jeans that they put on that feel good, the hand feel is great, and they feel comfortable and confident in them. So we have to make great products. Any company has to make great products, so do we. And then if you look at where we are, we're traditionally a physical retailer. Today, that's not how she's shopping. She's shopping how she wants to shop. Maybe she starts on her phone and she ends up in a store, or she starts in the store, ends up in her phone. So we're going to be where she is, and we're going to make money where she wants to shop. We have a $3 billion online apparel business. It's one of the largest online apparel businesses in the world. It grew at 30% in Q4. We have incredibly sophisticated technology that sits underneath that. So that's also part of the value proposition, is not only are we a retailer and we have a technical denim designer, but we are building and running great technology that shows up in front of our customers.
So we talk a lot about priorities, especially when it comes to the issue of diversity in particular, and I'm curious, is it your number one priority? Is it number 3? Is it number 10? You know, how do you, as the leader of the organization, make a choice about what's more important than something else?
Depends on what part of the organization you're talking about. At the board level, it's something I'm super focused on. Inside the organization, inside our stores, first priority really is a great experience for our customers with great products. Diversity for us, and this is something where, again, I have the benefit, diversity is kind of in the air and it's in the water, and it's programmed in, and it has to be defended and protected, but I won't say that it has to be the overarching priority right now. If we don't win with great products and a great experience, then none of the rest of it matters. And that really is the umbrella priority for me.
I love giving audiences like this specific examples, especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion, because it can feel so intangible. And I'm curious if there's a time when you made a mistake when it comes to this, where you realized that mistake and learned something from it.
So I personally make mistakes all the time. I will admit it. I go back to what I said about the willingness to leave your own social and cultural context and try to inhabit that of somebody else. That was a hard learning for me, to be willing to say, I don't know, I need help Help me understand how it looks from your seat, from where you come from, and that kind of thing. That was a hard learning. I learned it pretty fast. And I would say for me, that's me in my leadership seat from where I sit, that's probably the biggest one. To be willing to go and say, I don't know. For a CEO to say, I don't know, I don't know, is it going to ruin the whole thing, the whole mantle that surrounds me? But you have to be willing to go down and talk to somebody or talk to a group and say, I don't know, help me understand this. How do you see it from where you sit?
So how about on the flip side where you took a risk or did something that might have been a little bit scary, but the result ended up successful?
Result ended up successful. From a diversity standpoint.
Yeah. Whether it was building a team or talking about your customers or an ad campaign or...
Yeah, we do think about it in our ad campaigns. I wouldn't say it is as much now taking a risk. Go back to mixed race couples. Take a look at Old Navy's ads. Old Navy's ads are cast very diverse, whether it's body type, whether it's family type. We try to, there's a modern family component to it, whether it's race, sexual orientation, et cetera. I won't say that it's a risk that we really take because it works for us, drives a hell of a business that's growing fast. But that first time you do it, and I remember I did it inside when I was running Gap brand. If you remember the ad, we had a t-shirt campaign in the summer of 2012, and one of our ads, which was on a big billboard, was two men inside of a t-shirt. And they were a couple, they were a committed couple, and we put that out there. We got a lot of flack about it, but the social sentiment was overwhelmingly positive relative to the negativity that came associated with that.
That's awesome. I want to talk to you about a different kind of Me Too moment, which we saw recently at Intel, where the CEO resigned after having a consensual relationship with a subordinate. And it's the kind of thing that happens in corporate America and startup America all the time. But we don't talk about it, and it's often difficult to figure out how we navigate relationships in the workplace. What's your reaction to that? Is that an overreaction, or was that the right thing?
I don't know the details, so I can't judge what went on, what was the history, and all those kinds of things. What I would say is that in Gap Inc., we have a very clear, non-negotiable black and white rule. You don't date somebody in your power structure, in your reporting structure. We will fix it, we will move people and those kinds of things, and we acknowledge the fact that it's natural to have relationships in the workplace, but we are extremely, and I'm super focused on this, making sure that we're not creating a situation where there could be an issue associated with using the power in a way that's harassment or sexual in some form.
So for the people in the room today, what is one thing that they can do, and I asked this earlier, what is one thing that they can do tomorrow? What is one thing that they can do tomorrow to start building a more diverse team or a stronger culture?
Well, we're a very diverse company, as I've said. It'd be great if you went and shopped in our stores and supported that culture. I'd say, you had a situation here where you talked to each other. I was watching from the back. It was super interesting and energizing. Is talk about these issues openly with each other. Sometimes I think they lay slightly below the surface, and it all starts with the communication and conversation. And I would really go there at the end of the day. Just talk about it, ask questions, open yourself up a little bit. To me, that's the place where it all starts.
What if you're in an organization that doesn't feel receptive? What do? Whether it's your manager, whether it's the organization as a whole, whether it's the CEO, what do you do if you find yourself in a place where you're feeling resistance?
Fundamentally unreceptive?
Well, we don't know. Depends on how hard have you tried? Maybe you think you tried.
Yeah, again, can't judge the circumstances. It's where I come back to saying that the race for talent is ultimately going to win because people are going to vote with their feet. They're going to vote with their feet. The degree to which the conversation today in an interview, whether it's a board-level interview or an entry-level interview, where the conversation is part around, okay, what's been going on with you guys about #MeToo? Where are you from a diversity standpoint? I read your diversity statistics. That's front and center these days at the end of the day. And I do think people are going to vote with their feet.
Or their credit card. I'm pretty sure Gap or Old Navy is having an awesome sale right now. So Art Peck, CEO of Gap, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.